Astronaut John Glenn is in the news again. Not for anything as glamorous as space travel this time, or even anything as macho as Buzz Aldrin punching a reporter for questioning the moon landing account. Fox News, you might remember, was among many outlets reporting John Glenn, who declared as a 77-year-old in a news conference from space, quote, "To look out at this kind of creation out here and not believe in God is to me impossible," end quote. John Glenn now says facts about scientific discovery should be taught in schools, and that includes evolution. The astronaut, now 93 with fading eyesight and hearing, told the Associated Press in a recent interview that he sees no contradiction between believing in God and believing in evolution. Quote, "I don't see that I'm any less religious by the fact that I can appreciate the fact that science just records that we change with evolution and time, and that's a fact," said Glenn, a Presbyterian. John Glenn went on to say, "It doesn't mean it's less wondrous, and it doesn't mean that there can't be some power greater than any of us that has been behind and is behind whatever's going on." So, let's begin by resisting the urge to get angry when we hear the word evolution, because of the hijacking efforts of historical revisionists who take basic words like evolution, which simply means change over time, and then wear people out. People like Mr. Glenn, by insisting that because bacteria change into different species of bacteria, and viruses change into different species of viruses, and dogs change into different-looking dogs, and cats change into different-looking cats, then therefore fish must have turned into astronauts. And there's no evidence for this. Yet John Glenn is correct when he suggests that we should be teaching all of the science, including evolution as it is scientifically. You see, bacteria do change over time. Hence the need for the aggressive use of force and the use and development of antibiotics, and similarly for vaccines and so on. Christians ought not to shrink from the responsibility to embrace these scientific realities. However, we mustn't willingly allow the atheist community to get away with the grand extrapolation, that is to say, because bacteria change over time, or, quote, evolve into other types of bacteria, then it therefore must be reasonable to assume that fish evolved into human beings. The Bible makes this clear and scientifically proven statement in Genesis chapter 1 and repeated in Leviticus 11 and Deuteronomy 14. That is, everything reproduces according to its own kind. Interestingly, one of the synonyms for genus found at dictionary.com is kind. And even renowned atheist apologist Richard Dawkins himself admits this in his book, Climbing Mount Improbable, with these words, quote, "Flowers and elephants are, for the same thing as everything else in the living kingdoms. They are for spreading duplicate me programs written in DNA language. Flowers are for spreading copies of instructions for making more flowers. Elephants are for spreading copies of instructions for making more elephants," end quote. Now, before you accuse us of quote mining his book, that particular reference is a standalone quote on Dawkins' own website. This startling and, to be honest, rather biblical admission on Dawkins' part begs the question, if everything in the living kingdoms are for spreading duplicate me programs written in DNA language, emphasis on the word duplicate, then where is the Bible in error? It is not. And if the observable evidence points to, as the Bible predicts and Dawkins rightly agrees, everything in the living kingdoms are for spreading duplicate me programs written in DNA language, then the belief that, as deep-time evolutionist proponents argue, fish turned into people is more a matter of faith than any kind of real science. It's a faith based solely on the presupposition that there is no God who created every category of living thing, just as the evidence suggests. So John Glenn is correct. Let's teach all of the science, but only the science, and consider leaving the faith stuff to parents. Our advice is this: At some point, children should stop being told fairy tales and lies, the greatest of which is that once upon a time, a fish violated the design patterns of the natural world and ultimately became a man.